Good evening and welcome to the first of three meetings tonight. My name is Dennis Buckley, Mayor of the City of Beech Grove. And at this time, we will convene our Board of Sanitation meeting for Monday, August the 20th, 2018. In lieu of a roll call, I will ask each participant to introduce themselves, beginning on my far right.
Dave Harrison.
Dan McMillan, Clerk Treasurer.
Craig Wiley, City Attorney.
And Sandy Seward, board member, is not with us this evening. Board, you have been presented a printed copy of the minutes of the previous meeting dated Monday, August the 6th, 2018. Floor is open for any questions, comments, or corrections.
I have none.
No questions, comments, or corrections. I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. This evening, Board, we have 3 pages of wastewater claims in the amount of $240,839.21. Floor is open for any questions or comments.
I have none.
No questions or comments. I'll ask for a motion to approve the wastewater claims dated August 20th, 2018 in the amount of $240,839.21.
I make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. We have no unfinished business to carry over from the previous meeting. We have no new business this evening. Comments from board members?
I have none.
No comments. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second. The meeting is adjourned at 6:02 p.m. and we will convene the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting as soon as the clerk resets the recorder.
Ready to go.
Good evening and welcome to the second of 3 meetings tonight. My name is Dennis Buckley, Mayor of the City of Beech Grove, and at this time we will convene our Board of Public Works and Safety meeting for Monday, August the 20th, 2018. In lieu of a roll call, I will ask each participant to introduce themselves, beginning on my far right.
Dave Harrison.
Dan McMillan, Clerk Treasurer.
Craig Wiley, City Attorney.
And Board Member Sandy Seward is not with us this evening. This evening, Board, you have been given a printed copy of the minutes of the previous meeting dated Monday, August the 6th, 2018. Floor is open for any questions, comments, or corrections.
I have none.
If there are no questions, comments, or corrections, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. This evening, Board, we have 29 pages of corporate claims in the amount of $1,131,501.65. Floor is open for any questions or comments.
I have none.
I have one comment that I want to point out on page 10. About 3/4 of the way down, Indiana Department of Transportation, $2,235.48. This is, and we'll talk about this later, this is the last invoice, believe it or not, for the roundabout at 17th and Albany. And we'll get into that when we talk about that in the new business. And Dan, the clerk and I talked about it this morning, and we'll touch base on it here in a little bit. But I wanted to point that out just for the board's information. So having said that, if there's no other questions or comments on corporate claims, I'll ask for motion to approve the corporate claims dated August 20th, 2018, in the amount of $1,131,501.65.
I'll make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye as well, and the motion carries. We have no unfinished business to carry over from the previous meeting. Under new business, we have several items. And the first item is an environmental restrictive covenant concerning the property at 340 East Church from the Police Department, and an agreement with ERS. So I wanted, and the IDEM. So I want to defer right now to the city attorney for some type of statement on this matter. Craig?
Sure, so this is, we're closing this out. We've agreed to certain terms moving forward on the monitoring of the property, who pays for it. Of course, we have to pay for the monitoring for a certain amount of years. Some of the restrictions, we decide to sell the property and notices we have to give. But I reviewed it and I have no comments. I think the chief maybe had some conversations with the IDEM folks, but from my perspective, we're okay on this.
This is back when, Dave, when we pulled the tank out of the ground behind the police and fire station.
Okay.
And there was some contaminated area. And now we're to the point where we are going to have to restrict what type of activity is done there. And if we ever are not the owner of the property, then we would have to, in the deed, would have to disclose that this area is contaminated and probably will be. So it's our best interest to enter into this agreement and have the our clerk or city attorney recorded in the deed. So, Chief, do you have any comments on it?
My understanding is that according to the people that test this, this is the only way that IDEM will let it close out. It could still test for another 5 years, but if you don't sign this agreement, they never will let it close it out.
Dave, do you have any further comment on it?
No.
I think if we look back, three pages from the back, there's a map of the affected area, and it shows part of the police station, about half the back parking lot, part of the back building, and almost the entire engine room at Station 57. That would be what they call the environmental restrictive covenant area. And actually, that's a lot better than when we first started, because when we first started, it was out in the front yard.
Well,
So I'll stick to my original contention is that the city put the tank in and it leaked and whatever else happened, then we should be responsible to clean it up.
Okay.
So anyway, having said that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the environmental restrictive covenant concerning the property at 340 East Churchman.
I'll make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. I have to sign off on it and have it notarized, so I'll take care of that tomorrow. Thank you. Next order of business is a request for a block party on Bellefontaine. And Dan, if you could read this into the record.
Dennis and Julie, my name is Leanne Gibbs. My family owns the home located at 203 South 9th Avenue. I would like to formally request a block party for a limited time on the evening of September the 8th from 4 to 11 p.m. If this would be possible, I would be elated. This would help tremendously while we celebrate our daughter's 6th birthday. It would also give the kids a safe place to play since we're on a very busy intersection. I would like to request road blockage of Bell Fountain between 8th and 9th Avenue. Bell Fountain is a street right next to our home since we are on the corner of it, intersected by 9th Avenue, Churchman, and Bellefontaine. Even just blockage on Bellefontaine from the alley to 9th area would be accommodating. Could you please consider our request at the next board meeting? Thank you, Leanne Gibbs.
I'll open the floor. Dave, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I was just trying to think how busy is that a very busy intersection? Does anybody know?
Well, 9th and Churchman is extremely busy.
Yeah.
I don't know so much about 9th and Churchman, or 9th and Bellefontaine.
Bellefontaine, that's what I was talking about.
But
Would-
I don't necessarily agree with all of Bellefontaine being closed from 8th to 9th. I could go along with Bellefontaine being closed from 9th up to the alley, but there's a guy that lives across the street, across Bellefontaine. He would have to have access to his garage. So other than that, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But I don't think we should close the whole in
Yeah.
Bellefontaine.
Are they doing it to let the kids play in the street?
Well, they're saying here, block party for a limited time on the evening of September the 8th. I don't know.
Mark, do you know much about that? What would you?
It's busier because the one-way streets, if you go to 8th, you can only go north. If you want to go to 9th and go south, which is one of our busy streets, you'd have to go to 7th, go to Churchman and over. And my question is this a block party or a birthday party for a 6-year-old, and it goes up to 11 o'clock? It's pretty late for a
Yeah.
6-year-old birthday party.
I don't know if, I don't, we can restrict the time. I don't know. I'm opposed to the whole thing being closed off.
I would be too, and it'd be interesting to see if they have a block party. If they are, that neighbor across the street wouldn't mind his garage being blocked, if that would include it. But just to close it off for a birthday party, I don't understand.
I would have to get clarification on block party versus just kids running back and forth in this, I don't know. I'm just going off what.
Could we check and see, because we would have another meeting before this.
Sure.
Maybe that'd be
Close
better.
enough.
Huh?
The city park's close enough, have your birthday party.
True.
All right, how about if we invite this gal to our next meeting? Hear what she has to say. Motion to table, Dave.
I make a motion to table it.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Next order of business is request for block party, Detroit Street. Now I'll ask Dan to read it into the record.
Dear Mayor, some neighbors would like to block off Detroit between 13th and 14th Avenue on Saturday, August 25th for a small neighborhood party. We did this about 10 years ago and there wasn't any issue with this request. If this possible for us to do this year, if so, who do I contact to arrange this? Last time they put up barricades on either end of the short block. This is all that we would need. Thank you, Bob.
I sent him another email back asking for clarification on the time, and he said anywhere from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So, other than, I don't know how busy Detroit is between 13th and 14th. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments, Dave.
Who's Bob?
Robert Boyle. He lives at the corner of 13th and Detroit.
So
I-
he's wanting it off of Detroit between the 13th. Oh, I was trying to picture that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have an issue with it, provided he can move stuff in the event there's a problem.
just seems 11 to 9,
Oh, we can adjust the hours.
so that's one hell of a block party. I wouldn't mind, I guess I wouldn't mind if you maybe adjust the hours down some. I mean, 1 to 8, I don't know.
We could do 1 to 8.
Do you need a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion that you can, to knock the hours down to 1 to 8 and on August the 25th between 13th and 14th.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Next order of business is public disclosure on South 7th. Board, recently the city had sidewalk repairs made in front of a double at 79 and 81 South 7th. Prior to the city conducting the work, Citizens Energy Group relocated the water shutoff valve for the residents. As a result of this, Citizens Energy Group installed a new sidewalk leading from the city sidewalk east to the front porches of both residences. I want to publicly disclose that the city did not authorize the work that Citizens Energy Group conducted, and the city did not pay for the work that was conducted by Citizens Energy Group. This is for public disclosure, just in case anybody asks. No need to approve it. This is just a public disclosure. Next order of business is Indiana Homeland Security Foundation grant for the fire department. Chief, you or Jim want to come up and describe your intent?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. This grant from the state of Indiana is one that Chief Pierce applied for, and I'm going to have him explain to you how this will grant benefit the fire department on our ambulance side. And since we've received this grant, what he has done to help further and plan ahead for the other vehicles. Jim?
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time. This grant that I applied for was for video laryngoscopes, which is a device our paramedics will use for securing airways on people that are not breathing. Currently, we do it through a manual visualization, but because of that and problems with the patients, sometimes we don't get the advanced airway we want. We have to resort to less secure BLS maneuvers. So with this particular device, it'll greatly enhance our abilities to quickly secure these airways and provide better patient care and better treatment for our patients. The particular device that we're looking at is a little over $4,000 for one. So that was what this particular grant will cover, is one of those devices to put on the ambulance, probably Medic 56 being the busier of the two trucks. Our goal is to get one on both of our engines and the other ambulance, and to do that I've applied to Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation grant program to see if we can get the money to buy the balance of the equipment. But we did receive the verification from the state. We do have the $4,000 for the first unit, so we're getting ready to proceed forward to get that unit and get it out on the streets.
How would that work? Would they send a check to the city?
Yes, we'll have to buy the device and then submit proof of purchase to the state, and then they'll reimburse us.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'll defer to city legal for any comment. Craig?
No, I reviewed the contract last week when you sent it to me. I have no comment on it.
Dave, any comments or questions?
No, I think it's great.
I got one question. When we purchase this and then get reimbursed from the state, will this be done within this calendar year?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that for sure the real contract number on here?
I'm sorry?
Is that the real contract number?
No, they left out 10.
I never seen that. There must be 15 zeros in that thing.
Well, it is the state, so you never know. Could be.
Okay.
Are you zeroed out, Dave? Yeah. All right. Any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the fiscal year 2018 Indiana Homeland Security Foundation grant agreement.
I'll make said motion.
All right, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. I think, Chief, you can go ahead and sign off on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, if you recall, when you were chief, we actually presented this to you, take a look at the visualized airways. And at the time, the cost was about $16,000 to $18,000 for one of these. It just shows you what the technology, how far they've come with these advanced airways and the visualization since then.
When I was chief, the Flintstones was still popular. All right, the next order of business is final payment approval, roundabout 17th in Albany. Earlier this evening, we talked about paying the claim of a little over $2,200. And so I wanted to go ahead and approve that payment of that claim, Dave, and then I'll have a comment after that. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the NDOT claim pursuant to the roundabout at 17th and Albany in the amount of $2,235.48.
I'll make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. I want to go back and talk about the roundabout was an NDOT project. I'm not really sure when it started, but there is no reason, in my opinion, that this project should have been strung out this far. There was over $22,000 in change orders for this project, and this project should have been closed out long before this administration came into office. And the clerk and I talked about this morning. We did the Main Street project, the Safe Routes to School sidewalk project, the Churchman Avenue sidewalk project, and the sign inventory project. I don't know if there's any other projects we've done, and all 4 of those projects have been closed out. And now we're on our way to do the roundabout project at Arlington. So I just want to make that publicly, state that publicly, that I think this doesn't bode well for government trying to receive funding from NDOT. And that's all I've got to say. Danny, you have any comment?
Well, I just think it's terrible that it's taken 6 years or more to get this final payment to us. I didn't even know we still owed it, to be quite honest with you, and they were found it somewhere. But it's terrible. It even says in their Crossroads had been working on it for years, trying to get it closed out. And it just makes, it gives people the reason to make joke of government for as low a dollar amount as that was, and for them to take over 6 years, it's terrible.
So it's finally closed out. We'll get it closed out. And Brad, thanks for your work on this as well. On to the next order of business, homecoming parade request, Beech Grove High School. And I'll ask the clerk to read the letter into the record, please.
Dear Board of Works and Safety, the Beech Grove High School Student Council would like to request permission for the 2018 Beech Grove High School Homecoming Parade to be held Friday, September 7th. We would like to continue the tradition with the parade beginning at 5 p.m. at the parking lot of Beech Grove Middle School. The route will cover Main Street and will end at 4th Street. We expect the parade to finish at approximately 6 p.m. Please let us know if this request has been approved. Thank you for your consideration in this matter and for your continued support of Beech Grove High School. Sincerely, Laura Petty and Lauren Baker.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Dave?
No, sir.
The only thing I did ask them was to please, if they haven't already, to supply us with a certificate of insurance holding us as additional insured. Other than that, I ask for motion to approve the Beech Grove High School Homecoming Parade for Friday, September 7th.
I'll make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Next order of business, pay increase, Police Department. Chief?
Dear Mayor and Board, I'm requesting SRT pay for Tyler Frankel. Officer Frankel has passed all the requirements to be a member of the team. If his pay is approved, it will start the week of August 20th. And I made a mistake. It's not $9 extra pay, it's $9.62.
Oh,
It's
correct.
$250 a year, so it breaks down to $962 a
So it'd be
pay.
$962 per pay.
Yes.
Now, it would be from this point forward, right?
This, yeah, $962 from this pay forward.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Dave?
I have none.
That motion to approve the chief's request for SRT pay for Tyler Frankel.
I'll make that motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Next is the chief, request to hire a crossing guard.
Dear Mayor and Board, I'm requesting to hire Vicki McVeigh as a crossing guard. She has passed a background check, and she will start as a fill-in crossing guard. She's not going to cost any more if one crossing guard working one place is the same as another one. And I think that she is the only fill-in that we have at this time.
What would she make if she worked?
I think it's $15 a half an hour.
Is that right?
$15 an hour.
And she would only work if somebody called off or they needed something.
Yes,
Any relation to Julie?
not that I know of.
Okay. Dave, any questions or comments?
No, sir.
If not, I'll ask for motion to approve the chief's request to hire Vicki McVeigh as a crossing guard, wait a minute, as a fill-in crossing guard at no more than $15 per hour when needed.
I will make that motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thanks, chief.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, sir.
can you have her stop downstairs and fill out whatever paperwork they need for taxes and so forth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up, request for employment change and to hire part-time DPW. Brad?
Good evening, Board.
Hello, hello.
Dear Board, it is my recommendation to the Board of Works that the city hire Bruce Giffen as a full-time worker at the Department of Public Works. The position will be classified as commercial driver with a biweekly salary of $1,811.58. Mr. Giffen has worked at DPW part-time since January 2017 and will be filling the vacant position, or the position vacated by Joe Ramey. Mr. Giffen will serve a one-year probationary period. If approved, Mr. Giffen will be considered full-time starting August 21st, 2018, and there is money in the Sewage Works budget to fund this position. Happy to
Floor is
answer any
open for any
questions.
question or comment.
If he's been working part-time since January, why does he have to serve a probationary period? Because he's
Uh,
full-time?
He's been working part-time since January of last year, so it's been over a year. But yeah, it's a standard thing we do when we bring somebody on
Classification
full-time.
changes, Dave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think actually first-year employee is called probationary laborer, even though he's going into the commercial driver spot. And this is a plug for him. He worked really hard and went ahead. Sometimes we bring people on and give them a year to get their license. He actually got it prior and had it while he was part-time, which was a big plus for him to have that in advance, his CDL.
Would we have to do his brother works for the fire department, would we have to do we wouldn't have to do that, would we?
I wouldn't think there would be a conflict there.
Okay.
One thing I would ask Brad, because of being full-time, he's offered benefits now and additional, life insurance, things like that.
Sure.
So at his earliest convenience, if he could stop downstairs and
Okay.
get that paperwork filled out, it'd be helpful.
All right. Any other questions, Dave?
No, sir.
If not, I ask for a motion to approve the director's request to hire Bruce Giffen as a full-time worker at DPW.
Make said motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. And then that opens up part-time. Brent?
Dear Board, it is my recommendation to the Board of Works that the city hire a part-time worker at the Department of Public Works. This hire would be to fill the position vacated by Bruce Giffen. The parameters of this position will be that it will make no more than $14.79 per hour and work no more than 29 hours per week. There's money in the Sewage Works budget to fund this position.
Any questions or comments?
None.
If not, I'll ask for a motion to allow the director to hire a part-time worker at the Department of Public Works.
I'll make that motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
And tonight, Board, we have one more item of business that is not on the agenda. And I wanted to,
Thank you.
this person came in, I'm not sure when, the other day, after everything was posted. And to apply for a handicap parking
Oh,
permit.
that's on this, okay.
And I know it's August the 20th, but after researching, talking to the clerk and Debbie down in front office, anytime somebody comes in for the very first time to get this type of permit, they are always charged $50. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. So, because we thought maybe there might be an opportunity to prorate this, to give this person a break, but that isn't the case, and that's consistent with everything that's gone on in the past. So, we would just have to parlay to the applicant that this is a charge that is set in stone and not available for deduction. Is that accurate, Dan?
Yes, the issue is we still got man-hour laborers to go out and put the sign in, the cost of the sign, the post, painting of the curb, all that has to transpire. So these are just for ones that would not, the deduction is for the ones that would not ordinarily have it paid by, what is it, July something?
July 1st.
July the 1st, yes. There is a deduction for them, but not anyone new. Anyone new has always paid the $50.
Any questions, comments, Dave?
No.
If not, I'll ask for motion to approve the parking permit before us.
I make that motion.
I second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. That concludes new business. Comments from board members?
I have none.
No comments. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second, and the meeting is adjourned at 6:36 PM. We will convene our special council meeting this evening at 7 PM. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to the third and final meeting this evening. My name is Dennis Buckley, Mayor of the City of Beech Grove, and at this time we will convene our special City Council meeting for Monday, August the 20th, 2018. In lieu of a roll call, I will ask each participant to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Buddy Templin, Councilman at Large.
Jim Brooks, Council at Large.
Dave Harrison, Councilman, District 5.
Dan McMillan, Clerk Treasurer.
Craig Wiley, City Attorney.
Vito Mascari, Council District 2.
Elizabeth Lamping, Council District 1.
Chris Duffer, Council District 3.
Kevin Day, District 4.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We were supposed to have representatives of the American Legion here for a flag presentation, but obviously they're not here yet. So if they do show up, we'll stop the proceedings so they can, they were going to make a presentation of a couple flags to you folks this evening. We'll move on to special presentations. The first presentation this evening is from the Office of Sustainability for the City of Indianapolis, and this is concerning multi-hazard mitigation plan, the 2018 update that encompasses the whole Marion County. So this evening I invite Katie Robinson to the podium to go briefly through the plan and make any comments and advise you folks on how to proceed. Katie, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. We appreciate the opportunity to present before you this evening. Passing out some useful information is my colleague, Jeffrey Meek. He is actually the project manager on sort of our bigger picture plan that we're doing right now, which is entitled Thrive Indianapolis, and it's Indianapolis's first ever Sustainability Resilience Action Plan, which we will talk about briefly a little bit further in the presentation. Again, my name is Katie Robinson. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability, and I'm here to present the 2018 update to the City of Indianapolis's Marion County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan, also known as the MHMP. The MHMP protects people and property from the effects of hazards such as tornadoes or extreme temperatures by developing strategies to reduce or eliminate long-term risk. Through this planning process, we have assessed hazards that threaten our community and identified and prioritized strategies to reduce potential impacts. So what is hazard mitigation? It means any action taken to reduce or eliminate the long-term risk to human life and property from natural hazards. The federal government requires the updated plan be approved by the City County Council every 5 years to ensure Marion County's continued access to federal funding and disaster insurance. The Indianapolis City County Council and joining jurisdictions approved the last required update in 2013. Following the adoption, the plan will be submitted to the State Department of Homeland Security on October 1st and to FEMA by November 1st. The Office of Sustainability, in collaboration with the Office of Public Health and Safety, IMPD, IFD, and numerous other county stakeholders, developed this update. At this time, we have expanded our stakeholder participation to include several external partners not previously at the table, like the Airport Authority, Indigo, IPL, and Visit Indy, who have had a vested interest in and a responsibility to protect the health and safety of our residents. As I mentioned, this is part of Thrive Indianapolis, which I will discuss here in just a moment. We have hosted several meetings to encourage community participation in the development of this update. We will continue to do so through October. On June 6th, we hosted a meeting specifically to discuss the MHMP with National Resilience expert Kristen Baja. Roughly 40 members of the public were in attendance. This 2018 update to the MHMP was prepared in conjunction with Thrive Indianapolis. Thrive Indianapolis is an effort to advance the sustainability and future livability of Indianapolis and Marion County. The 2018 MHMP is also a foundational element of Thrive Indianapolis, ensuring that residents in neighborhoods across the city and county are prepared for existing and future threats, shocks, stressors, and opportunities. In other words, that our community is simply more resilient. The 2018 Marion County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan evaluates a total of 15 hazard profiles and, for the first time, 2 cross-cutting themes. Ensuring a safe and prepared Marion County begins with addressing the needs of our most vulnerable populations and communities. In many cases, the neighborhoods least equipped to handle the effects of catastrophic events end up with the more consequences than if the same hazard impacted a more affluent neighborhood. Throughout this plan, the thermometer and globe icon is used to denote how a hazard has already been impacted by climate conditions, such as increasing temperatures or extreme weather events, as well as how impacts are projected to be influenced by future projected scenarios. And actually, if you look at slide 6, which is on page 3, the bottom of page 3, it shows you the 15 hazards that we evaluated in this process, in addition to those 2 new cross-cutting themes, which again were social vulnerability and climate change. And then actually in this process, we identified 5 new hazards. So in 2013 to now, we have identified 5 additional hazards that we needed to make sure were included in this update. And then on page 4, slide 7, we outline 7 goals for the Marion County 2018 mitigation plan. And for the benefit of those in the public, I will go ahead and read those. The first goal is to enhance public awareness and understanding of risks and foster leadership, partnerships, and actions to mitigate them. Goal 2 is to increase resilience by ensuring that hazard mitigation and climate change initiatives are prioritized for action with a focus of the most vulnerable critical facilities, resources, and communities. Goal 3 is to encourage community, local, regional, and interagency coordination of actionable mitigation practices. Goal 4 is to establish data-driven and jurisdiction-specific hazard mitigation and implementation strategies. Goal 5 is to reinforce local policies and align other plans and standards for hazard mitigation capability. Goal 6, promote compliance with state and federal program requirements. And lastly, Goal 7, in a disaster, Marion County residents are prepared to survive for 72 hours, 3 days, without assistance. And then on slides 8 and 9, so they're at the bottom of page 4, and on the next page, page 5, top slide, this gives you an example. It's literally pulled from the multi-hazard mitigation plan, which I believe the mayor so generously provided a copy to you. This gives you a snapshot of what each of those hazards might look like. So as we sort of break it out, for instance, on slide 8, for the benefit of the public, we simply describe a tornado, what the main impacts are, and on the next slide, we made sure to bring some historical context, and we opened up or rather reflected on the June 2014 tornado that hit the Speedway area in Marion County. Lastly, I would say that I would encourage all of you to sign up for our Thrive Indianapolis newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter. You can do so through thriveindianapolis.com to receive additional updates. As I mentioned, while the multi-hazard mitigation process has concluded, the Thrive Indianapolis portion, we will continue to engage the public through the fall, hoping that we will have a final document ready for public consumption by the end of this year. I guess I would actually open it up for any questions that you might have at this time, if that's appropriate.
So are there targeted areas around in Marion County that, as far as industrial or hazardous potential that you have, that would be like in the newsletter, that we would have more awareness to those kinds of things?
So we wouldn't necessarily dive into that level of detail into the newsletter itself, but I would encourage you to read in the multi-hazard mitigation plan. I believe that there is a section that is specific.
Okay.
Jeff, is there hazard materials? Yes. And if necessary, what we can do is specifically send you a section if that's a preferred method.
And then as far as this plan, then that's part of the plan of action is knowing those areas and having the resources, I guess,
Absolutely.
to be available
The
if
answer
they
to
were
that,
affected.
Counselor, is yes.
Okay.
And what this will also do, so the next step in our process is to update the comprehensive emergency management plan. So this is just a sort of a piece in the overall response that would occur.
And then do you work with the police and fire?
Absolutely,
Okay.
always.
Yeah, always, yeah. Thank you.
What was that, to sign up for the newsletter?
Absolutely, it's thriveindianapolis.com.
So it looks like as far as the heat and the temperature is becoming more and more of a obvious problem.
Yes, it definitely is. I would, for some light reading, actually, it really is not that heavy of a reading, but the Purdue Climate Change Research Center has Purdue, and if you just Google Purdue Purdue Climate Change Research Center, they have created very easily digestible, sometimes like 5-pagers on many of the issues that we're talking about. And one of them would be heat.
Perfect. Do they go out to the schools? Do you get involved with the schools as far as?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we're doing through Thrive Indianapolis is we've created what we're terming the Thriving Schools Challenge, and it is very much a way that we're hoping to engage all 300 and some Marion County schools.
Perfect, okay. And then how about healthcare facilities, hospitals, and this all?
Absolutely. One of our partners throughout this process has been, actually, it's the 3 tiers, right? So Eskenazi has been one of our partners, Health and Hospital Corporation, and the Marion County Public Health Department.
Perfect, okay. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Any additional questions? Well, thank you so much for your consideration. I believe we will be back in a couple weeks for your hopeful adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Jeff and Kate, for coming out this evening. We've had more than one meeting with them, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. And I can't remember the first time that I listened to Katie speak, but it was on sustainability. And it's something that you folks have, whether you're aware of it or not, have done a great deal so far since you've been sitting up here with our elimination of fuels from city properties, the reduction of air particles from power and light. And just recently, folks have did some work on changing your lighting out to LED. So those are all kind of neat things heading in the right direction, and this plan here, we have to do this because we just don't know what's going to happen, and we have to be prepared. So what I want you to do, what I recommend that you do in September, at the September 4th meeting, we will hear a resolution to approve this, to adopt this plan, and then we will submit it back to the city of Indianapolis. And that holds true with every excluded city in Marion County. So we just have, I don't know if anybody's
their resolution today, and Lawrence and Southport are currently considering it as well.
So we'll be right in that loop. And we'll hear this, it's not fair to do it tonight. We'll let you look at it and we'll present it at the September 4th meeting.
What will that mean for the city, and what's the city's responsibility?
Well, we already have plans in place for responding to natural disasters or man-made disasters. This allows us to take part in the funding, to get funding to help rebuild and to help offset cost, to respond and to mitigate an emergency. So this is all Homeland Security and FEMA directed. So.
I have a question for Katie again, and I think with my work in healthcare, insect transmitted diseases are becoming more and more prominent because of the resistance of insects. And I do know with the mosquitoes and ticks especially. So does this play into, is that fold into this as far as the Marion County Health Department, I suppose? But
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I would encourage you, so the Purdue Climate Change Research
Yeah.
Center, actually their most recent report was on health, and it would absolutely play into your interest. So
Absolutely, yeah. And I hear that a lot from young families along my district as far as standing water, and that is a big concern to them. And I do know that, insect transmitted, insect to person it's on the rise, and it's going to be something that we're going to have healthcare have to really watch out for.
absolutely,
Yeah.
as we continue to see changes in our temperature and also an increase in our rainfall, those will be
Yes.
big issues for us.
Yeah, thank you, thanks.
Any other questions on this portion? If not, we'll turn to another special presentation, Okra update concerning Shrewsbury and Mike Kleinpeter. As you remember earlier this year, you approved a funding for a Main Street plan. They have concluded that plan and would like to make a presentation to you this evening. And they have some additional information for you tonight. So first, I'll turn it over to our consultant, Mike Kleinpeter. Mike?
Good evening. My name is Mike Kleinpeter with Kleinpeter Consulting Group, and I was the grant administrator for this project. This project we submitted it to Okra and got approval just earlier this week. We will have a formal adoption at the September meeting. Tonight, I think Nola's just going to hand it out and talk to you a little bit about the plan and kind of go through it with you. She's been the one leading the process, so I will let her tell you a little bit more about the plan.
Thanks, Mike. Again, my name is Nola Albrecht. I am the Director of Landscape Architecture with Shrewsbury & Associates. And we started the Beech Grove Downtown Revitalization Plan study. It's been about a year ago now that the whole process took place. It's been ongoing throughout this last year and a few months in cooperation with the city, with Next Stop Beech Grove. With their vision in place and then the city's backing financially and the input with the city for all of the infrastructure. We also held public meetings with some stakeholder groups that were specifically looking at the different components that we identified, being economic development, infrastructure improvements, and facades. The main impetus of the master plan was to go after a Main Street revitalization grant for facades. And so there was a big push with working with the business owners owners along Main Street. Some of the things that we highlighted within the document, which you've got in front of you, and it's about 180 pages or so, but we did a lot of background and history search of Beech Grove. We've walked the streets, we've talked to a lot of different people. We identified that Beech Grove is a very unique community. You have Main Street, and our planning area was specifically from Emerson Avenue to 8th Street along Main Street. And then we went a block north and a block south on 2nd Street to, I'm going to forget the names of the streets now because I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, just a block north and south of Main Street there. So we identified the character of Beech Grove having the uniqueness of it being the 1- and 2-story buildings. Some people think that that there's really nothing here, but when there's really not another community probably in the state that has as many intact 1- to 2-story buildings as Beech Grove does. And one of the things that was highlighted throughout the process and a lot of the community input is that there was more of almost a theme that we wanted to take on in some of the revitalization was recapturing this mid-century modern character of Beech Grove. So there were a lot of ideas put together, and there were about 12 businesses that are potentially moving, or building owners that are potentially moving forward with the Main Street grant for the revitalization. And those are listed in the document, which you'll be able to see. Buildings that are highlighted, there's initial plans, some preliminary plans, layouts of what that facade improvement would take on, and some initial cost estimates that were identified as well. Some of the other highlights that we looked into, again, were the infrastructure improvements. Now, knowing that Main Street was improved not too long ago, within the last 10 years or so, along Emerson Avenue and Main Street with new sidewalks and curbs and such, some of the things that were identified throughout the process was to enhance lighting, maybe to work with some of the plant materials and some of the streetscape elements within the street, to maybe cut back on some of the shrubs, create more usable space on the corners for bus stops, looking at maybe adding in some furniture. We also identified as one of the highlights of the plan to bring about art, culture, and eating as a good place to eat in Beech Grove, using those items as enhancements, if you will, for bringing new residents and bringing actual visitors and people to come in and spend their money here. And so with that, some of the streetscape enhancements that we identified along the street was to bring in some of that artwork. So you'll see in the plans some ideas of how we could incorporate some artwork, whether it be temporary or permanent along the roadway, in the right-of-way, obviously. Again, some enhanced safety elements for pedestrians, maybe some upgraded crosswalks, making sure that all the curb ramps and everything are intact, and bus stops are safely located so that riders would be safe as they're waiting on a bus. Some other things that we highlighted was the potential to add in some other cultural type activities, and knowing that Beech Grove has a very active community with events, with the 4th of July and different events along there, that potentially finding locations within Main Street that when the streets close down that would house or be easily set up and converted to stages or event space that would, electricity would be close by. The space is set up well for vendors and tents, and keeping in mind again how pedestrians actually flow through the space that could attract more visitors again to this community. So those are some of the highlights that you'll find in the infrastructure improvement sections. And then we touched a little bit on the economic development components of this as well, and came up with a couple recommendations on some ways that economic development can help fund the maintenance and some of the other pieces that would go into the streetscape, because if you can't keep it maintained, again, we don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that everything is done well and is sustainable into the future. So the economic development, there's a section in there on that as well. In the back of the document, there's an implementation plan. It's really it's a strategy that gives us short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. You can see there, we identified those as ones that could be projects that could, are the low-hanging fruit that could get implemented first. And we give ideas on costs for that, and also ideas on who would be the champion for those services or those implementation of those projects as well. So again, we want you to have a chance to look over this, and as Mike mentioned, there'll be another meeting in September. Did you mention that yet? That for the final resolution. So we want you to. This is your copy of the document, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
I think that the preparedness for this is we're looking forward to we're looking forward to these changes. I know we hear, and I've been to some of the meetings, we hear communities throughout the state, and I've heard, and I've listened and heard several areas that you would think wouldn't have that potential, and they've just blossomed from this effort. They've really made it just from that attractiveness and drawing people in.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, we're excited about it too.
Ready for it.
We're excited about it too, again, because I think Beech Grove is really well set in place in a lot of different ways. I mean, you're close to other activities, you're close to, not far connection from where maybe the cultural trail could come in. There's just some great things that you have in place, maybe future opportunities as Amtrak develops, or, the possibilities are endless, so,
I think
yes.
the city of Spencer down in Owen County, didn't they do something with, I know they had some funding from another, somebody else assisted with that, but I think Spencer, Indiana, and Owen County.
Correct.
Has really.
I do believe you are correct. So that kind of wraps up the planning grant, but I came to talk to you about what's next. Where do we go from here? We have a plan, now what? Okra has 2 rounds per year where you can apply for construction grant to make some of these improvements. The next round of Okra funding actually opens on Monday. So there's a couple due dates we got to hit, though, if we want to be eligible. We have to have a public hearing, so I've got that scheduled for our normal council meeting in October. A second public hearing will be held later in November. We have to do an environmental review. So there were 12 buildings identified in this plan that are potential projects that can happen in the construction phase. Okra awards $600,000 in grant funding. It takes a local match of a 20% total project cost local match. So it's about $150,000 for a total project cost of $750,000. So you're eligible to apply for that. The next hurdle we got to get through is the environmental review. The environmental review costs $5,000 to do, and it takes 60 days to get through SHPO. The next round proposals are due on October 5th, and the application is due November 30th. So if you back up 60 days off November 30th, you're at September 30th. But really, you need to give yourself some wiggle room because we're dealing with these historic buildings, and State Historic Preservation Office has some very particular rules about dealing with the buildings, and we need to make sure we're keeping them happy and also maintaining the integrity of these buildings. So we need to start that environmental review. The sooner the better. I'm thinking probably like September 5th. So that way we can get our paperwork together, get it sent up there, and start that 60-day clock. Because if you do not get through SHPO and get through all 7 agencies by November 30th, you're not eligible for that round of funding. So November 30th is the next application date. Awards will be announced January 17th of 2019, with construction starting probably, July or August 2019. So those are kind of some of the next highlights of what's out there. Any questions?
So what do we need to do as the council to help me?
Yeah, I think the next thing really is just the environmental review. It costs $5,000, and that will count towards your local match. But that's really the next thing to keep things on track here.
Will that take a resolution, Dennis?
I think it's just a professional agreement contract. I mean, I've got a copy here today, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to review it first or what, so I didn't. What would you like me to do, I guess?
Well, I think, excuse me, I think the board can approve it, but I want the council to authorize it and let the board approve it. So if you folks want to engage in that, we would be open to that, but we'll let the board award the agreement.
But we have to make,
But I would like for the council to approve it,
and we could do that tonight.
if you like, or you could do it at the September council meeting.
I'd say put it on the agenda for September, and then
Okay?
My question to you, this is the second phase of grants that we've gotten, or we're applying for through Okra.
Correct. So Okra doesn't call it phases, but you are correct. The first part was the planning grant, and the second part is the construction piece.
Okay, and we're allowed to do up to 3.
Here-
Are we going to try to do another one yet this year?
So you're allowed up to 3 at any one time to be open, as long as the previous is under contract. So we're actually getting ready to close this one out, but there is nothing lined up right now to take up your second spot. We've been working, and this is the biggest priority we thought for the community was this project. So this will take your second spot, which means it will hold a spot. So if you're awarded on January 2019, you're not eligible for another Okra project until June or July or August when you sign contracts with the construction company. So it will hold your spot for a little while, but.
Well, I think from my personal standpoint, I know that sewer and stormwater are both eligible.
Correct.
And I think that would help the greater masses in this community. And it's some issues that have been brought up previously, so.
So yeah, I think we have to make a choice, which way we want to go. And we can go either way.
So if we put this on the agenda at the September meeting and we authorize this, we need to give that approval for the $5,000, correct? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that going to be for the local match? That's going to be enough time? That will be, the timeline will be sufficient to get everything done?
Yeah, we'll make it work. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll make it work.
Mayor, who officially approves though? Is it the board of, okay.
Yeah, but I want the council to have input. The board ultimately approves it, but I want the council to have input on this and want to do this.
Will the board wait to hear council input? Okay. I had a question on this, on the downtown plan you just handed out. And I, for me to follow it, I did well. Of course, I didn't get all the way through it. But has everyone on like the steering committee and the focus group had a chance to look through it already prior to us? Okay, good. Like, I know one name on here is Chris, but he's on the steering committee, so, but that's good. I just wanted to make sure they had all seen this as well.
Yes, they remain drafts.
I imagine so.
And Next Stop Beech Grove has had a continual communication with all the businesses, and I want to understand, yeah.
Chris, did you want to comment on it? Okay, all right. Having said that, we'll move on. Counselor, public comments.
Nobody signed up.
Okay, we'll move to unfinished business carried over from the previous meeting. General Ordinance Number 11, 2018 is up for approval on third and final reading this evening. And at this time, I'll ask the clerk to read the ordinance into the record, please.
Number 11?
Yes.
Okay. General Ordinance Number 11, 2018 is an ordinance that deletes Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Beech Grove concerning false alarms. Whereas our dispatch center once monitored certain fire alarm systems, and whereas Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Beech Grove partially spells out our regulations concerning alarms which were once monitored by the City of Beech Grove, and whereas Chapter 98 of the Code of Ordinances concerning public nuisances now deals with false alarms or multiple responses made by the fire and police departments. Whereas Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinances is no longer applicable and is recommended to be deleted in its entirety. Now therefore be it affirmed that the Common Council desires to delete Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Beech Grove concerning false alarms. Now therefore be it further affirmed that the Common Council desires the following action be taken. Delete Chapter 104 false alarms in its entirety without substitution. Now therefore be it affirmed that the Common Council desires to delete Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinance for the City of Beech Grove. Now therefore be it further affirmed that this ordinance only applies to Chapter 104 of the Code of Ordinances and no other ordinance. Now therefore be it further affirmed that this ordinance shall go into effect immediately after passage by the Common Council, signed by the Council President Pro Tem, attested by the Clerk Treasurer, and signed by the Mayor.
Thank you, Dan. General Ordinance Number 11, 2018 is up for approval on third and final reading. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Been a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Please register your vote. And having said that, General Ordinance Number 12, 2018 is still tabled for this evening. Under new business, council, the first order of business is 2018 Community Crossings Grant Round 2. And before I have Brian come up, I wanted to go through a couple things with you. In your packet should have been the announcement for the Community Crossings Grant for this fall. And this document here, the City of Beech Grove Pavement Asset Management Plan. This is brand new. it has every road in the city of Beech Grove has been rescored and has been given a rating. This is something that you folks did earlier with the ordinance concerning sidewalks, curbs, approaches, asset management plan. This is really, you did a good job with this. Now this gives us the opportunity to focus on roads that are the worst and take care of those. So every road is on here, and right in the middle of the sheet is a number from 1 to 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. Then you could see where these roads are at in the scope of things. And then we just start going off of the worst roads, and one of the good things about this is it just reaffirms the good work that we've done over the past 6 years. We have one road that has a rating 1, which is really good. And Dan and I, we talked about that again today. But we have a ways to go. So I applaud you folks for putting this into ordinance. This is good stuff. So what I want to do now is we have another opportunity to do some more work. So I'm going to ask Brian Pearson from United to come up and talk about the possibility of applying for more funding to do some more infrastructure work. Brian?
Good evening, Council. For those of you I have not had the pleasure of working with yet, my name is Brian Pearson. I work for an engineering firm called United Consulting. Over the past several years, we have assisted the city with preparing plans, bidding, and administering construction on various roadway improvement projects around the town. We have also, in some cases, assisted with securing additional funding for these projects. The mayor asked me to spend just a few minutes this evening sharing some background information on one of those funding mechanisms in particular, the Community Crossings Matching Grant, which he has already pointed out the application. This program has some history, was established in 2016, so it's only a couple of years old now. It is meant to help cities, towns, and counties across the state pay for roadway and bridge improvements. It's specifically for those purposes. It is operated or administered by the Department of Transportation, but unlike many projects that have to go through NDOT, there are actually very few strings attached to this money. You don't have to have NDOT review your plans, you don't have to complete full-blown environmental documents, and you don't have to actually bid the project through NDOT. You can do all of those things locally, and NDOT quite simply signs over a check for a certain percentage of the construction. There's only a few requirements to go along with the application itself. The application is pretty simple. It's done online. It actually has to be submitted by your employee of responsible charge, which is Mr. Merriweather back there. He's got an account all lined up with the website that's required to submit the application. There are a few things that go along with the application. A detailed construction cost estimate of the projects that you're requesting, a funding commitment letter usually signed by the mayor or the clerk treasurer, and finally the asset management plan, which was the other document that the mayor has already provided, which was just approved last week. So almost all those boxes are already checked off on what you would need to submit an application for the current call for funding. The current call did begin on August 6th. The deadline for submitting is September 28th. So there's a month and a half left to prepare the necessary documents to make this submission. Based on the population of the city, the funding that's offered through this program to the Beech Grove is 50-50. They will match 50% of the construction cost of a project, NDOT, the state. But that does not cover preliminary engineering costs or construction inspection costs. Those two items are covered 100% locally. So when you add those in, it's not quite a 50-50 split, but pretty close still. There have been a few changes that are going to be implemented. We've already been notified. Like I said, the program just began in 2016, but it's growing. It's a very popular program. People are realizing how easy it is to get some of this supplemental funding to their projects. The two big changes that are coming to this program is it will no longer be retroactive. As of right now, we can actually submit an application for projects that have already been constructed earlier this year and get reimbursed for them. And I think there are 2 or 3 locations and projects we've already discussed that would be an excellent candidate for submitting the application for that alone. To counterbalance that, I believe the intent is that the state is now going to offer two call for projects each year for this program. Right now, it's only done once annually. About this time of year, it's been every time so far, but moving forward in 2019, they anticipate having a call for projects in January and one in July. But again, those will no longer be retroactive. The intent is, for the most part, the projects that they award to be shovel-ready, to be 95% designed, to be ready to go, right-of-ways bought, environmental permits and stuff are obtained, and then they will gladly fund half of your project. There was an additional project that we were looking at for this year, some work on 4th Avenue. I don't know how much detail you want me to get into on this, but.
Yeah, go through it.
Okay. 4th Avenue between Churchman and Fletcher, we've taken a look at. There's definitely a need for some sidewalk construction in that area. And while this project is not strictly a sidewalk enhancement type of program, if we mill and resurface the road, which is basically take off the top 1.5 inches and put a new 1.5 inches of blacktop on, that qualifies us to do some of those other sidewalk improvements. ADA curb ramps and all that good stuff can be included with this funding as long as there's some roadway work being done. I actually checked the PASER rating for that section of roadway, and it's a 3, which puts it in the lower category. So it makes sense to do the roadway work and get some additional sidewalks built at the same time. I did want to let you know that in the past, we have already applied for this funding the 2 years running that it's been available, and the city has been awarded over $730,000 to date, just in 2016, 2017 alone. The projects that we're talking about doing possibly for this 2018 application, I have looked at some preliminary numbers of both the construction costs and the engineering and inspection costs. To round it up a little bit, roughly an investment of $86,000 would get you $100,000 back of the 50% match from the state. So you get roughly $200,000 worth of construction, and again, the engineering and the construction administration or the construction inspection is 100% local. But if you can find the matching dollars, then you can request. The actual limit for communities that have enough matching grant to fill is $1 million. It's $1 million cap. And as I mentioned, this program is becoming more and more popular. In 2016, I don't think they actually spent all of the money that they had available for this, which is roughly on the order of $150 million a year so far is what it's been available throughout the state. They do give a certain percentage to rural communities, cities. cities and counties. But again, based on your population, a 50-50 matching grant is appropriate for anything up to $1 million. I don't know if there's any more specifics you
I think
want me
it's
to get
important
into.
to point out that this is the last time, like, we can get reimbursement for South 8th, Grovewood, and North 10th because it's already done, but this is the last year that we can do that.
Right.
If we don't do it, we lose it.
Yep. And again, to go along with the shovel-ready idea, the work on 4th Avenue that we would also propose submitting an application for at this point, it has to be under contract to be built no later than April of next year. But I think with a little luck, the notifications for having this funding awarded are supposed to come out in late October, early November. There's a chance that work on South 4th could actually get done this year. Kind of becomes a temperature-related issue related to laying asphalt. But the idea is that these projects have to go, and they have to go fast. So you kind of got to jump on it and have a set of plans put together, know where you want to do the work, know where you want to put in the money and the effort. But if you do, there's a very reasonable way to obtain some additional funding.
So what do we have other than the Churchman, excuse me, the 4th Avenue Churchman? So there are other projects that you have?
Yes, yeah, as the mayor was indicating, there's 3 locations where we did some work earlier this year as part of another roadway construction contract. It was some work on 8th Avenue. I'm not sure, actually I do have it written down right here. 8th Avenue from Byland to Churchman. There was some work on Grovewood Drive that was patching kind of all around that area between 9th and Emerson. And then there was some work to reconstruct 10th Avenue around Albany Street. So all of those projects are done, constructed. You've paid for the design, you've paid for the construction, and this is the last time that through this funding mechanism, we can actually go back and theoretically get half that money back. Yes, sir.
What about for 12th between Alton and Churchman? You just did that, Dennis. Wouldn't that be included?
That work was included in the 2017 grant that we already achieved. So that work did already get paid for, construction 50-50.
Okay. Why wouldn't they have put sidewalks in there since they were needed on that street?
The sidewalks, the main focus of the program is roadway reconstruction. Like I was mentioning on 4th, there is the opportunity to improve ADA curb ramps, replace sidewalk that's failing, or in some cases put in new sidewalk. That particular decision just basically comes down to a local choice. It's not a requirement per the program.
I would say also, Chris, high volume of walking.
Well, and that's not to say sidewalks could not be put in there at a later location. There's, again, the matching dollar amount that has to be figured out of what's available from the city's half.
Brian, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I understand this clearly on the dollar amount needed from the city. What is the total dollar amount for that project with excluding the engineering estimates and things like that?
Right.
And what approximately that would run?
Well, the numbers for the 3 completed projects is roughly $88,000 was the construction costs. So we're eligible for half of that back. The construction cost estimate for the work on 4th Avenue is right around $103,000. So half of that we'd be eligible for reimbursement on, or in this case, not reimbursement because we haven't done it yet, but 50-50 match.
And then approximate ballpark on the other costs?
Right, the 100% local cost to cover the engineering, the quoting, which we've discussed doing as opposed to bidding this project because it's less than the $150,000 amount we can quote instead of publicly bid it, and still follow all the letters of the law on that. But the part-time construction as well, that comes to a total of about $35,000.
Okay.
Now, we don't have a contract in place, so that's estimate numbers for your purposes right
So it's
now.
going to be approximately 85,000.
Yep.
Because I was looking for 50,000.
I was too.
So anyway, you know, I don't know tonight whether or not we can come up with that, but I'll do everything I can to try to do that, because anytime we can get any money back, you know, we're getting subsidized for that, I think is a great thing for the community. And I think it's been proven with some of the grants we've gotten so far.
And we could look at the construction that we're proposing to do on Fourth Avenue. The milling and resurface, the sidewalk, or the roadway work has to stay to be eligible for the
Right.
program. But we could discuss some of the sidewalk locations. There's construction costs that could be trimmed down there too to fit a budget.
Okay, all right.
So I'd be willing to come over and talk to you guys about whatever we need to do.
Absolutely. And like I say, I hope we could come up with all of it, but I can't say that tonight.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. You bring good news.
All right. Council, what I would like for you to do is, if you are in favor of this, I would recommend that you approve this, provided the city can come up with the funds to do that. So I would ask for a simple motion to approve, provided the clerk can come up with the funding.
I'll make a motion with your providing, which is extremely important.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign.
We could pass the hat here in a minute.
I think Dan just needs to pull out his billfold.
Yeah, all right.
I don't want to get hit by a moth.
The next order of business, this is just for your information only. There should be in your packet a copy of a environmental restrictive covenant. And if you go back to the third from the last page, you'll see a drawing of the Churchman Avenue, the police station, the back building, and the fire station 57. I'm not sure how long ago, a year or two, we took the tank out from behind the police station. And there was contamination, and it's been cleaned up. But that circular, or that square area back there is the environmental restrictive covenant area, which means that there are certain types of construction that cannot take place there. So this will have to be recorded, and we already approved, the board approved it earlier this evening, but I wanted you to see it because, it's something that we put the tank in back in the early 70s. We caused the problem, and we need to be responsible to make it right. So you'll be seeing another one of these for DPW, but it's not as bad. But here it is, and I don't ever see us not owning this, but you just need to, council, you just need to be aware of this. And we have mitigated it properly, and in order to close this out with IDEM and ERS, it calls for that agreement. So, but that is just for your information this evening. And I want to move on to the last item of new business. And I thought now would be appropriate that we have statistics for the first 6 months of this year. And I wanted the police department, fire department, and the DPW to come up and talk to you about the comparisons between the first 6 months of 17 and the first 6 months of 18, where we're going with departments, the type of equipment and things that they're going to need on the horizon. And I think it's just good information for you to hear. So, Mark, you want to go first?
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
To start off with, you've seen what I've turned in and the equipment that we need. Probably the most expensive equipment is vehicles. Every year we try to add cars. This is the last year that there hasn't been a substantial increase in cars. I was told last month that the vehicles that we're buying, the Tauruses, the passenger car, is not going to be available for the police. It's going to be the Explorer, the SUV, and the cost is going from $5,000 to $8,000. They haven't come out with a solid figure, but they're saying $5,000 to $8,000 increase just for the vehicle. Why? The salesman's not given a reason. He's probably just told that this is the cost of doing business. Those vehicles cost around $27,000. So we're looking for $32,000, $35,000 for one vehicle. And then the equipment itself, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 is how much light bars, radios, some pit bumpers for them, things like that, just equipment that it costs to do business. I'll get to our building. Our building is ancient. Just over the weekend, our air conditioning went out for, I think, the third time this year. And we have to have a company come in and they fix an air compressor, and $200 to $500 about every time they come in. A plumber came in, and we have metal pipes. The metal pipes get clogged, again, $200 to $500, 2 or 3 times a year. It's not every toilet or bathroom, it's just accumulation of that. Our costs for repairing our vehicles, as you know, oil changes go up, gasoline goes up, tires go up. We haven't had an increase in our maintenance budget. We didn't have one last year or this one. And just when you consider the budget, to know what the costs are that you see out there, we have them too. We're putting 2 more cars on the road. It's going to cost more in gasoline and more in maintenance, oil changes. About every 5,000 miles, cars will run about 100 miles a day. So you can figure 32 cars are doing that, every week. That just as a cost. Brakes wear out, brakes cost more, and that goes up. Our computer system, our radio system, the police department back before I came in office, we were allotted 28 radios for this, what's called a CAD system. They have let us get by with it until this year, and now we have to pay the difference. It's about $200 a month. So we're looking.
Beech Grove's not the only victim, it's just countywide.
This is
everybody
countywide that I don't know if the county's absorbed it or who's absorbed it, but they're not letting that go anymore.
$200 a unit, radio?
$200 a month for the extra radios that we get, or the frequency. I'm not sure how they consider it. And that's not going away. I can tell you that I was caught off guard, I think Dan was too, that the contract with the police department is that we replace original equipment, uniforms, for the officers for their Class A. That wasn't figured in the budget, and that is costly. You're talking a holster, a gun holster, $150, $170. You have that probably once a year. You know, you're figuring the 30 officers, 35 officers. Those were out, and that's done by inspection. Our shift supervisors inspect the uniforms, and they tell us if they can be replaced or not. Uniforms were out, buttons do, our holsters for our bullets, handcuffs, things like that. Class A uniforms, Class A shoes. Officers don't wear them all the time, but again, once they wear them and after a few years, they don't look good, and the rubber and shoes can fall apart actually. I can tell you now that I have my 2018 budget, I am at 90% of what I have left in physicals, but officers haven't done their physicals yet. And when we hire 2 more officers, those physicals are about $3,000. So that's going to cut that quite a bit. And I have 0% in my public notifications. And that's because I have sent out stuff to newspapers to try to hire officers, and we do public notifications if we are doing special events. My building material is down to $3,000, $3,700, and that doesn't include what was spent this month to fix the air conditioning and some of the plumbing issues. It's the cost of business. You do something in your house, it just goes up. And the economy is getting better. Wages have gone up, so the businesses are going to raise their prices. They're not going to be able to pay somebody $15 an hour when they were paying them $10 without raising cost. So I just ask that you consider that. And some of the good news is that we have our CIF fund, or Criminal Investigation Fund. That's funded by mainly one officer that works with the DEA, and it's confiscated money and material, cars, whatever. In 2015, we spent $211,000 plus to pay for items that we needed: rifles, bullets, shields, bulletproof shields, and we've purchased some other things that slings and things like that that go for our SWAT team or even for the officers. 2016, we spent over $275,000 out of this fund. It's not a budgeted item. I'm just asking you to consider what extra that we do for the public to make our equipment as good as possible. And in 2017, we spent $99,000 out of it. And so far this year, we've spent $21,000 out of it. So we're looking at over $500,000. That's not been a budgeted item, but has made our department department better. And I'm not asking you to give us that kind of money back. We understand that. But just in the regular budget items that we're getting eat up by price increases that we've not figured into our budget.
And if I'm right in saying so, that particular criminal jail used to be a lot stricter. Back in the day on what you could buy, it's a little more liberal now, I guess. And is that right or wrong?
It's still as restrictive, or it's gotta be something for the police department. And we try to keep it, we don't buy carpet with it, we don't buy picture frames with it. It's something that a police officer or the citizens can benefit from. And that keeps us out of trouble, instead of going out and buying a $80,000 Hellcat Charger that looks fancy. We don't do that. It's rifles that are better than shotguns. It's buying new pistols that the department can't afford. And just as the mayor said, our underground tank, that is something that it wasn't budgeted. We have 3 or 4 tests a year, about $5,000 a test. It's got to come out of my budget somewhere. So we move things, borrow from the gasoline, or sometimes out of CIF. So it's not asking for all of it, just maybe a little bit configured into the budget.
I was going to ask you, you got one good budget category, or is they all going to the max? Or
They are down. Figure we have 4 more months of payment. We don't figure December as a payment because it comes out of the next month. But physicals and valuations. But then you're talking $2,000 or $3,000 for 2 new officers each to do these tests. And then one of them that I'm going to ask to come to get hired, he doesn't have the academy. The state has changed their rules that now the police department has to pay for their academy, their meals, and that can range from $3,000 to $5,000. And that's something else that is just part of us doing business.
Mark, I'm sorry if I stepped out and missed it, but can you do a crime comparison from the first 6 months of this year versus first 6 months of last year, for especially Part 1 crime?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring that, but I know that our Part 1 crime, which is murder, robberies, rapes, has not gone down. Just recently, you heard in the news, we had a naked guy that got caught that did a rape inside one of the apartment complexes. Those murders haven't gone up, fortunately. That's not something that we see coming from Indianapolis. But the robberies are steady. Be it they go into a gas station, be it they go into the subway, those have increased, and our rapes have increased. Now, you might see a 120% increase. It's not that it's that much, but for our size of city and what we have dealt with, it's a lot. And it's a victim that we have to deal with too. We try to pride ourselves on making it a safe city, putting officers out there, but we still have crimes and victims that we try to do as much as we can and bring in outside agencies as far as the Center of Hope, which does with domestic violence. We have officers that are specifically assigned to help that along with their other duties.
How about drug arrest?
The percentage of drug arrest, I don't know what the percentage is, but I can tell you 2 or 3 times a week, our middle shift or late shift have drug arrest, gun arrest, and vehicle pursuits. Just last week, we had a vehicle pursuit that had a crash. Then we had a guy run on foot that both of them had drugs with them, and a majority of them will have a gun. So our potential for violent crime is there. Needles are out there. For needle sticks, we train our officers to be more alert to the needles. We ask people, you'll be surprised the amount of people lie to us. It's just amazing that the honesty that doesn't come with criminals. We don't know why, but that happens. But our property room is bulging with drugs. We can only burn or destroy the drugs when the courts say so. And Betty, you might have an idea. If anybody has an idea how slow the courts are, some court cases are going 2 or 3 years. And when you have to keep this property and just keep adding it, Tim White is a very active person on late shift. Vito, you could ask him how many drugs he takes off per week, and guns and chases he has. We are just getting, not that we're not in Indianapolis, we're not, but we have those crimes coming here. And our officers are active to try to make the city safer.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Dennis, I'd like to make one comment. Last year, at the end of the year, I think Mark asked for $100,000 for police cars. The city came up with $300,000. So I just want to make it clear to the public that I don't think there's anything you've asked for that you have not gotten. And that goes for all the departments. You know, I think it's, like I say, to go from $100,000 to $300,000, not having debt on you, I think was a good move on this administration. And from where you started at, when Dennis and I started, to where you're at today, is like night and day. Is there any things you guys need? Most assuredly, I'll say there's things you need. We've talked about additional things that's going to be added to the budget that's over and above the 2%. We watch that, but anybody that needs anything, come see me, because to date, I don't think you've came to me to ask for anything you need. So I just want to make sure that the public understands we are funding.
Don't want the radios too.
Yeah, the radios. It was a large expense for fire and police both, so.
And that's an expense the city didn't even have in the past, the radios,
Absolutely.
which was,
So, I just don't want people to think, well, these guys are terrible, they're not giving them what they need.
you probably don't have anything to say, do you, Chief?
I'm done now.
Okay.
Mayor and council, it is my pleasure to present an update on the Beech Grove Fire Department and reviewing several needed requests for the 2019 budget. We are dedicated to providing our city the highest quality of public safety and emergency services. Your fire department strives to meet the needs of the community through the committed efforts of 35 sworn firefighters and 2 civilian paramedics. Currently, the Beech Grove Fire Department is short 1 civilian paramedic. These dedicated individuals provide fire suppression, emergency medical services, and public education. In 2019, the Beech Grove Fire Department anticipates many new challenges. Our professional firefighters and civilian paramedics continue to respond to more fires and requests for emergency medical services than ever before. Today alone, the B shift that came on at 7 o'clock this morning has already responded to 22 emergency calls, and they have 11 hours left on their shift. You can see the dramatic increase in runs on a daily basis. Our emergency medical services remain at the front line of encountering sick and injured patients daily. This fall, the Beech Grove Fire Department will receive a site visit from CAS. CAS stands for the Commission on Accreditation of Ambulance Services. CAS standards provide detailed record review covering all areas of management, including finances, human resources, community and media relations, clinical standards, equipment, communications, and safety. Accreditation assures local officials and the citizens of Beech Grove that the fire department is providing quality patient care in accordance with nationally accepted standards. Our latest rechassied ambulance is in its final stages of being completed. We are awaiting graphics and radio install. All of our mobile radios have been purchased in 2018. The portables were purchased in 2017. We were able to receive 26 portable radios in 17. We purchased 8 mobile radios for our equipment and 7 MDCs, computers for each of our frontline apparatus. We must continue with a current replacement schedule for our ambulances. Currently, with this chassis, we need to anticipate purchasing a new ambulance in 2020. The reason for that is we have a 2000 Horton ambulance that we already had rechassied. That box, it's an aluminum box, after 20 years, it is at the end of life cycle. We should not rechassis that ambulance anymore. It's just unsafe. And with the technology and the new trucks, the room in the back, we would have to reconfigure a lot of the seating arrangements and bring it up to the new national standards. It would be cost prohibitive. I anticipate being able to rechassis our new Medic 56 one more time. And then we'll have to consider another 5 years whether to look at rechassing that ambulance or another new purchase. But that will be on down the road. The Beech Grove Fire Department has an excellent partnership with St. Francis Hospital to provide contractual staffing for Medic 56 and Medic 57. This joint venture has provided a much-needed second transport and ambulance for the city of Beech Grove. Currently, the Beech Grove Fire Department is short 1 civilian paramedic, and we will request to have this position filled in January of 2019. This would bring the fire and civilian EMS staffing to full compliance. With our ambulance load increasing over the last several years, to date in 2018, we have responded to 3,321 incidents of August of 20th of this year. Last year, to date, we responded to 3,218. It's actually a slight decrease. With our ambulance collections in 2017, we brought in $1,281,000. In July of this year, our rate of collections was $734,347. This year, our date of collections is $839,320, an increase of $104,972. So we look for our ambulance collection rate through MedBill to continue to be on the upswing. And that's very good positive numbers. And in the next month, we will look to bring the Board of Works another contract through MedBill to continue their good services for the city in ambulance billing. Our medical supplies, this category continually needs to be increased to offset the cost of medical supplies to restock our ambulances and paramedic engines. The increase is a direct result of run load and the cost increase in medical supplies. I would anticipate a 10 to 15% increase in supplies for the 2019 budget. On average, we purchase supplies through IEMS. We spend about $5,000 on average in supplies. And that does not cost, that cost does not include disposable items such as gloves or electrodes that we have to purchase through a separate company. And that cost averages about $1,200 a month. So we're looking around $6,200 in supplies a month for EMS services. Out of this category, we also take out our LifePak service contract to Physio Control, and the service contract provides full service maintenance and repair on 4 LifePak monitors. And the cost for this service is $7,142 per year. And it sounds like a lot of money, but we've saved the city a lot of money in service cost and replacement cost. We had a LifePak and the rear compartment of engine 57. There's an antifreeze leak from the heater in that compartment. It damaged the circuit board to the LifePak. This contract provided a replacement circuit board for that LifePak, and also gave us a loaner while it was getting repaired. That cost would have been probably around $12,000 to $14,000 for the repair. And so it's well worth the money spent. As of date for 2018, our firefighters have responded to 2,770 emergency runs. This shows an increase of 168 runs compared to the same time frame in 2017. On August 13th, our 2 newest recruits graduated from IFD recruit class. This will allow us to have 11 firefighters assigned per shift. This will have a definite impact on firefighter safety on emergency calls. In 2018, we faced many challenges in staffing, with several members off for extended period of time due to illness and injury. The first quarter of 2018, we were affected with several flu viruses that affected our staffing levels, and we had overtime in on almost a daily basis. And I would have to say our close quarters and sleeping quarters probably contributed to those illnesses being passed around, even though we use good hygiene, washing hands, trying to take care of each other, spraying Lysol. It definitely was passed around the firehouse this year. This last quarter of 2018 looks more promising due to our staffing. We anticipate everyone to be off light duty, back from their injuries, and decrease our overtime hours. Currently, we are in the bid specification process for new SCBA and a Cascade air bottle refilling station. The bid was designed by our Health and Safety Committee to provide the best equipment to protect our firefighters in their daily jobs. Great consideration was given to ensure our next SCBA purchase includes the latest design, function, and safety for respiratory protection measures while meeting all National Fire protection standards. We currently have money budgeted for lease purchase for this equipment, which will serve the citizens of Beech Grove over the next 10 years. This bid will be opened at the September 17th Board of Works. In 2019, we have requested replacement of 3 fire department staff vehicles with an estimate bid of over $130,000. The current staff vehicles will be repurposed for the city for the fire inspections, compliance, and our senior citizens. Long-term planning for new apparatus and equipment is needed to maintain our long-term autonomy as a department. In 2019, we need to start the process for new fire apparatus replacement. Much like the police department, the cost of repairs and maintenance and the general cost of doing business to keep our apparatus in a constant state of readiness has continually increased. Our repairs and maintenance budget was at $41,000 this year and has been depleted. Our Medicare fund, we received $17,000 in Medicare fund. We just had to spend $12,000 of that money on engine 56 through Cummings Crosspoint to get it back up and running. I sent out an email. Everyone should have received the email with a long, lengthy list of items that need to be fixed and repaired on that engine. It is back. It's back up and running, and we hope we don't have any more severe maintenance costs throughout the remainder of the year. We are faced with many different challenges on a daily basis, such as housing our employees. The need for a new firehouse is prevalent for our personnel and equipment, and you can just see this by stopping by either station and viewing our current living conditions. We need to bring our infrastructure up to the current codes and standards for a modern fire department. And we currently do not have adequate sleeping, living, bathroom, and showering facilities for our female and male employees. In my 2019 budget proposal, I include some upgrades to stations, and these were very modest upgrades, and they're necessary repairs. We need to take a look at Station 56 and have that roof repaired. If we're going to be in that station over many years to come, it's time to take a look and schedule for a roof replacement. We need concrete pad repair at Station 56 and some repairs at Station 57. I would like to see the maintenance room repaired and kitchen upgrade to Station 56. We have needs in physical fitness equipment. Our current physical fitness equipment was purchased off a grant over 10 years ago. Those treadmills, we've piecemealed them together. They're on their last leg. We have 2 elliptical machines, and they're also, the cost of repairs each year significantly go up. We currently are waiting for our Stairmaster to come in and repair the stair machine at Station 57, and all those costs, you know, they're expensive to fix, but it's a necessary item for the health and fitness of our firefighters. In conclusion, I would ask each and every one of you to stop by our stations, see the equipment, see the stations, and meet your personnel that work for the Beech Grove Fire Department. We have exceptional men and women who are proud to serve the city of Beech Grove. Beech Grove is an outstanding city to live, work, and visit, not just because of your fire department, but because all your public safety and the personnel that work for the city. I can't say enough about the DPW, the streets, the parks, Mark's department, the police department, and how they all work together. It's very easy to pick up the phone, talk to the department heads, and you just might need a barricade or something very simple, but it's taken care of immediately. And the response that we receive from the other department heads is phenomenal, and very proud of them. Please accept my thanks and appreciation for your continued investment in the future of our fire department. And in 2019, we will review the delivery of some of our programs and continue to meet the needs of the community. I hope the information that I provided was helpful and informational. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me by phone or email at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I got a couple of comments on that. First of all, as far as being one civilian paramedic down, the mayor and I, when we spoke with you, gave the choice of firefighter or civilian paramedic. You chose the firefighter. One thing that's plaguing the department is overtime. It's absolutely horrendous, the amount of money we're spending on it. As far as the administration, I know we've bought 2 fire trucks in a short period of time we've been here. One of them we paid cash for. I'm thinking there was 4 ambulances that we've done. So, I mean, we are trying to do what we can do, but, you know, we're a small municipality with a small tax base.
Yes, with the firefighters, we are currently at full staffing now for our firefighters at 35. And that does meet the contract that the city has with the union. When I was asked if I could replace the firefighter or a civilian medic, I did choose the firefighter to replace immediately because of the long-term problems we're having with our staffing and the amount of time it takes to get a firefighter through recruit class. We had a good list, and this year for our firefighters, we pulled 2 excellent firefighters off that list, and they're currently now on the street working for us, which will definitely help decrease those overtime costs. With our civilian medic, that does affect our staffing. It's needed for the community. Part of our program with St. Francis, they provide a SAGE, which is an EMT driver, who's also a paramedic student. When we do not have staffing on the fire side, and for minimum staffing to keep both our engines operational, we don't have a paramedic to bring over to the ambulance. That means we're sending a St. Francis SAGE student home, and that ambulance is marked out of service. I know we are all faced with limited budgets, limited money, but we do try to do due diligence to have both engines and both medics in service as much as possible. We've had to shut engine 56 down for a 12-hour period several times this year. One day I know it was for a 24-hour period because we just didn't have the staffing. I'd love to, have 4 or 5 guys on overtime to keep all the equipment staffed, but I know we just can't do that. We're just trying to, when we do backfill with overtime, we do fill to just provide minimal staffing levels for the city. That's 4 on one engine, 3 on the other, and a battalion chief. And that's at minimum just to keep everyone here in this safe and this community safe, so.
Well, I think we do understand too, just police department, fire department, probably the biggest, that even though you hire somebody, it takes a long time before that person accounts as part of your census or part of the staffing level. I mean, police department and fire department, when they go off to training, because they're hired, that doesn't stop someone still having to fill the position they're going to fill that's already there. So that's what's kind of sad when we have to lose a retiree or someone goes anywhere else.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
A couple things before I ask Brad to come up. I don't know how much money we saved by rechassing. Dan, do you remember? But we've saved a lot of money by,
Right, I can't remember. Rob may have a better idea than I do. I'm just not sure.
and then the air packs that Rob was talking about coming up. And Jim, you know this as well as anybody. We've got to get this right. You know, there's no air. This is one of the most critical pieces of equipment that the men and women wear, so this has to be right. So we have to invest what I think would be the absolute best equipment on the market for these people. And I'm pretty proud about this. You know, we can always be better, but when we started in 12, our ambulance revenue was 400,000, if I'm not mistaken, Dan.
That sounds about right.
And now it's, what did he say? I don't,
No, you.
yeah, pretty good. And the staffing levels of both departments are the highest level that they have ever been. So that is, we can do better. We got a ways to go, but those are all positive signs. Brad, could you come up?
Well, Dennis, on that subject too, I think the newest fire truck we had when we came in was 25 years old. So, you know, I understand, you know, we got issues, but we're making great strides.
Good evening, council. I will kind of continue that, Dan. I think that for us, it's hard to complain because things have gotten a lot better, and I want to acknowledge that. So thank you. When you guys kind of came on board, and the mayor and the clerk, it was pretty dire, especially out where we are. I mean, there were things that were they were beyond the end of their lifespan. So this month we take delivery of a third new trash truck. Our two in service are 2012s, which isn't bad at all. We just cut loose at the auction of a 2000, so it was 18 years old. And before that we had one even older. I think it was a 90-something. So anytime you say 90s, anything, it's not good at this point. But so yeah, I appreciate the new equipment over the years. You guys have always stepped up when we need things. A lot of what I deal with is things like weather play into it, so it's really hard to know how bad the winter's going to be. So salt, things like that, where you can't predict. So it could be that we have a little bit of a surplus. It could be that I'm begging for money, but we've always found it and made it work. So I'll kind of stay out of sewage works because I know we don't advertise that budget. I mentioned the trash truck, and I know the mayor and the clerk are going to provide another one next year, and that'll put us in a really good situation. The jet truck, as you guys know, we've had conversations about where that's at. It's a 90s truck with an old engine on it, but I'll kind of leave that alone depending on where that all goes. So I'm going to concentrate really on MVH and LRNS. You should have a picture in your packet, I think, of 3 dump trucks. Those are probably our last 3, like real dinosaurs out where we are. Those are smaller dump trucks that we use really on a daily basis to pick up heavy trash, to gravel alleys. In the winter, they do spread salt and they plow. So, I mean, these things are in service. They're used all the time. They're a 1993, a 1994, and a 1995. And they are junk. I mean, they just are. And if you came out and got in one, you wouldn't believe it. They sound like a derby car. And they're really, the fact that the mechanics can keep them going, in the past, Tom Wilson and now Matt, is a testament to their skills. But they're shot. So that's probably what's on the horizon for us. And I know the mayor and the clerk are supportive of that. I think we've talked about doing one this next year and trying to replace those trucks with newer ones. I did get some pricing on a F-350 through the state bid, which was reasonable, and that would serve to replace those 3 trucks. Beyond that, as far as equipment goes, our wood chipper is a 2010. The brush program is a hugely popular thing in our community. We get calls every single day from people that have brush out and want it picked up. And that chipper is out all day, every day. So it's got over 5,000 hours on it For that to be our only chipper is a little scary, especially if we had a weather event. You can sometimes rent equipment, but you don't always know if it'll be available. So ideally, it'd be nice to have that as a backup, and to get a new chipper within the next couple of years would probably be a responsible thing for us to do. Just knowing how popular it is and the fact that people would never probably go for, we're going to shut brush down for a few months. Not going to happen. I think people like it.
Could I make a
as well as
comment right
anything?
there?
Sure.
Just today, of course, I put out two things. One of them came down because of the weather, and just good timing. Here they are. But what got me the most was a guy down the street from us was like running with this big branch, and your guys get up there and they help him. And then he tells me a story, because I got talking to him about how he forgot his trash, which they never knock on my door, but they realize his situation, and they're helping him. The trash guys are helping him on that. And he said, and I, no offense to any of us in this city, but he said, I could move out of this city with that type of service I get that you'll never get anywhere else. And he said, talk about how personal the guys were. And they were that way with me and the neighbor down the street. And I bring it up because it happens today, and you mentioned that. But the thing that chops those things up are, they ought to be in a parade, according to two neighbors today I talked to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, it's a popular thing. I mean, people cut their trees and they want it, you know, they want to be able to get rid of their limbs. And so we provide that. And we're usually, our guys understand that that's what differentiates us from, you know, like Indianapolis. If you call them, good luck even getting a real person on the phone that'll listen to your complaint, but they're not coming back to get your trash. We've always told our guys that's what makes us different. You know, that's why we do it for people. And stuff happens. So obviously we can't do it for everybody, but it's rare that we get a call. When we do, we try to work with people. So yeah, that's a hugely popular and important piece of equipment. We've been fortunate, but if we were to have something like back, I don't know how many years the tornadoes went through here, gosh, 15 years maybe, 12. But God forbid something like that happen again, where we got hit with a storm or something's really bad. Those chippers are out, multiple chippers out every day, all day. So that was sort of on my radar. And then I spoke to the mechanic, you know, what's on your radar? And we do have one truck it's a equivalent of an F-750. It's a GMC 7500, and it's an 03. And it's very useful for us because, especially in the wintertime with Emerson, it's got a big plow and a big spreader. And having that one big truck allows us to do some jobs that we just can't with the smaller trucks. So down the road, that might be something we would need to look at. Looking at the budgets, I was just sitting there thinking, 17 wasn't a great year for us. Actually had some pretty big repairs, and that particular truck hit us with a big bill because the electrical was pretty much all eaten up because of salt. And somehow it had been exposed to the salt during, over the years of salting with it. So 18's actually been better. So my budget doesn't look terrible, but there were a few things as I went through it that popped out that I thought I would bring up. Probably a few of them are known. Fuel has gone up. You guys have known that. I think 2016 was called like the year of cheap gas. It went up a little bit in 17. We actually had a surplus in 16, and then what we did was when we did the underground storage tank removal, we used that surplus to fund that project basically. And as Chief mentioned, with the testing and things, that gave me a little bit extra money to do that with ERS. But as that has wound down and that project's kind of been completed and we're kind of on the tail end of that, the gas prices are going back up. They went up 66 cents on average right now over last year, and then last year was up over the year before that. So I've seen that surplus kind of disappear, and I'm kind of back to, eye level with it, and if anything, starting to maybe lose a little ground. But I think the mayor mentioned that him and the clerk talked about this, so they're aware of it. So fuel is something we need to know that if that continues to go up, we'll probably have to increase that. My repairs and maintenance maintenance, there's like a 23% decrease. That is really tied to the next category, which is LRNS. And what happened was, this winter really just didn't want to end. It just kept going. You know, we kept having things that happened in March and even a few things in April. So I have to do a bid each year on salt. And the way it works with the state is you put in a bid number, and you can either go as low as 80% of that bid number or as high as 120%. Well, because it wouldn't end, I ended up going to the 120%, which ate up my entire budget, which was for salt and gravel. So because of that, to do alleys with fresh gravel, I was having to pull from MVH, basically, repairs and maintenance. So while this year's been better, and I probably would have been in better shape, I've had to pull some things out of MVH because LRNS got shortchanged because of the increase of salt purchase. The contractual services was also a little lower because we spent more money with contractual plowers, which that's what that comes out of, that help us in certain neighborhoods that we use. I've got a lot of trees that live sidewalks. People want them taken down if they're too big for our bucket truck. I have to hire that out. That eats that category up as well. We do a little bit of mowing, but what gets me is in LRNS contractual services, a lot of times I have to fund the roundabout getting hit, light poles on Emerson Avenue, which just happened, I had a pedestrian light get hit on South 9th. I mean, none of these things are budgeted for. We had a planter get wiped out on Emerson. You can't predict it. Some years are great. Some years you feel like people are aiming for these things. And every time it happens, like Chief was mentioning, there's certain things you don't budget for them. So when they do happen, I'm scurrying through the budget looking for money, you know, trying to find it from a place that maybe is going pretty well, but now it's going to go to that, you know.
Why
So
does their insurance not cover that?
well, so I just had a light pole get hit. And I usually get a police report. This guy said he had State Farm. I called State Farm. They'd never heard of him, of course. So I called our insurance through Walker, and she said, well, you have a $10,000 deductible. Is it going to cost more than that? No. Well, then it makes no sense to file a claim. So you eat it. That's kind of how it works. I have had situations where they've had insurance, and I've actually been able to get reimbursed, but that's been the on the low end. Generally speaking, I don't get anything.
I'm surprised they all stick around. Apparently they can't get away.
Well, it had to be towed, yeah, so.
Yeah, okay. Because I figured they'd be hitting around or something.
I'm sure if they had that option in a few of them, they would, but generally that's what it is, the uninsured or something, and then unless it's something catastrophic, it's not gonna be over 10,000. I mean, think, a lot of times if the roundabout gets hit, it's $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 each time. The light pole, you know, you might spend a couple grand, the base gets rocked, you know, so you never really quite get to the 10, so it doesn't make sense to file a claim, so you end up eating it, and then I end up having to just find it in the budget. So those are things that can eat up certain categories on a bad year, you know, and then you find yourself, but again, I'll go back to the fact that the administration has always helped out when we've bottomed out and needed extra money because of things that we can't predict. So having said that, really, we're not in terrible shape. Some of these things worry me a little bit. I will mention that salt, like I said, it was a bad year just for the amount that I used. This is also the first year going into 18-19 where I've seen a big increase. And by big, I mean it was $9, roughly. It was $8 and, to be exact, $8.74 a ton. Prior to that, I'd say in the last 7, 8 years, it goes up 15 cents a ton. I've even seen a year where it went down a little bit, but all of a sudden it jumped almost $9. So on 900 ton, you know, that's $9,000. That's just on cost of just the cost of salt increasing. So that is something that happened that we need to be aware of, that, you know, if I go up again on, we have a bad winter and I do 120 tons on that, I'm at $100,000 in my salt. I don't have close to that in my budget. So again, that's where we kind of have to go back to the drawing table and, you know, find a way to cover it, because you can't not salt streets. So do you guys have any questions at this point?
I got a comment.
Sure.
On the 6.5 years we've been in office, I think only one time we've had to go outside looking for salt, and that was the year it was so bad everywhere, and I think it went like from $9 to $15 or $17 a ton, so you've done an excellent job on that. As far as fuel everybody's budget's gonna be going up on fuel just because of the trend, the way it's going. Repairs and maintenance, I hope to increase that in everybody's budget. You know, the pie's only so big and you do what you can with it, but, you guys, I can remember when, the chippers out there were held together with duct tape.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yep.
can you give us an idea, like the F-350 and the chipper, the cost on replacing them? Because we are looking for a dump truck in this year's budget.
Yeah, the F-350 was right at, and we went through the state bid, and we're pretty basic on what we want. I mean, you're getting the truck, a dump bed. It was 44,700. The chippers run about, we paid 25,000 for this. That was in 2010. I'm going to say it's going to be between 30 and 35 to get one similar equivalent. On the salt, yeah, that was, we pay $79 a ton, actually. It went up $9, so it's at $88 a ton. When we ran out, we got salt from Chile is where it was coming from, and I think we were paying $150 a ton, and it can get worse than that, because it's
Chile,
like
Indiana, or?
Chilean salt, as in Chile, South America, or wherever.
They smuggled it in.
You get to be like pirates with the salt at that point, because they know you have to have it, and they'll charge whatever they can get away with, so.
As a council
Chilies are
person,
good.
I have, as a council person, I have a question. So with the weather-related issues, so the asphalt and potholes, and that probably affected the budget at some.
In a good way, as the mayor mentioned, in the pavement asset inventory, I mean, our roads have increased in their rating, so all the paving that we've done, which has been a lot compared to years prior, I've seen the average condition of the roads really increase, so my pothole budget for, they call it bituminous materials, it's gotten better, yeah. I've actually used that for gravel at times. You know, that's where you just kind of pull from other places to make it work.
That patching machine helped also, which was a new item out at DPW we didn't have previously. So.
Yeah, we're able to get hot mix, which is actually cheaper. Before that, we couldn't really get the hot mix unless it was 100 degrees outside, because it would cool off too fast before you could use it. But in the kettle, now we can keep it, so we pay a lot less for that, so that's
I
it.
drive around the state a lot, and last year, our streets were a lot better than any town I've been into.
They're
Terre Haute,
terrible all
Greenwood, all of them,
around.
they were
Indianapolis
Really good.
took a big hit, and we were fortunate in that we stayed out of that.
Some people got a nickname as pothole and everything else. I know that Mr. Buckley didn't want that one.
No, we don't want that either. Well, if you don't have any questions, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Department heads. That concludes new business. We'll go to comments from council members. Buddy?
Yeah, I wanted to say, I brought that up about the DPW, those guys, because they were like out there today, and I only told one lie. That guy was so impressed, I did tell him I was the mayor. So, you know, and he said, "You're Vito Mascari?" And I said, no. I do want to say I appreciate a lot of information today, and Brian, what you brought forward. And I understand department heads, you know, you're constantly going to continue to look out for your departments and prepare us for that. At the same time, it is such a difficult way to put a mixture in here that what has happened under this administration, and I hate to say it this way because I don't want to give an advertisement of politics, but I think it's important to say as government that they've been able to accomplish so much in so many different areas. And I just want to brag on that as a citizen, that it is your job to get up here and say, hey, we got to watch out for this, or we need this, or prepare for that, and you can't be faulted for that. At the same time, you also want to be able to do, you know, just like Dan has done, and for the mayor, that how different things have been in the past several years that we've been able to maybe sometimes forget or not be appreciative of. I served on this council a long time ago, and not to insult the past administration, because as a legislator I was involved, but the times were tougher then. Assessed valuations were going down and maybe some poor choices, but it was a perfect storm, and you wonder, how do you get out of those things? And I do applaud in the last few years, things have gotten pretty good in our city. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know one of the problems that we heard about tonight was a lot of overtime pay for different departments, and I know that the DPW, police department, and fire department has people being injured, being off sick and everything, and it's something they can't do anything about. It's gonna happen, and I know, being on the fire department for 30 years, that the chief officers at that time will do their best to cut down on overtime if they possibly can. But we have to protect our citizens in the city of Beech Grove with manpower, whether it be police, fire, DPW. They have to have people out there. And it's one of them things that just happened. So I applaud the three department heads here. Thank you.
I have nothing.
No comment.
I thank you for the information. There's a lot of solid information we need to sort through. We've got a lot of good work to do. Thank you all.
No comment.
I don't have anything.
They were going to be that quick, Mayor. I got another 20 minutes of speech over here.
That's why we cut ours back.
Oh, okay.
A couple things. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, September the 3rd, but that's Labor Day, so we're going to meet on September the 4th, Tuesday. And then the following Monday, September 4th is a regular council meeting. We will meet again on September the 10th for the 2019 budget. That will be the only thing that we take up at that special meeting, the budget and the salary ordinance. So please mark your calendars for that. So, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
You'll make said motion right there.
And a second?
Second.
Second meeting is adjourned at 8:53 PM. Thank you very much.